the next talk of the symposium. We have a sensational talk. We are going to have a sensational talk by Rudra Vikrama Srivastava ji. I'm calling it sensational from a historical point of view, particularly from the point of view of Rama Navami Yatras. It is a document of Rama Navami Yatra found from Prayagraj. This recent discovery, this recent finding created lots of sensational ripples in the news circles. Rudra Srivastava ji shot to fame because of this discovery. It has many ramifications, many implications. Rudra Srivastava ji runs a channel, a history research channel, Kayastha Research, and he also is now in the history circles known for his involvement with archaeological research on many areas, but particularly this Rama Navami documentation in a particular inscription in Prayagraj has become very, very sensational, and Dr. Rudra Srivastava is going to present it from the perspective of Rama Navami Yatra and evidence from the very ancient time in the history of India. Over to you, Rudra Srivastava ji.
Okay, so namaste everyone. My name is Rudra Vikrama Srivastava and I am a student of archaeology. Since 2022, I've been studying the early medieval epigraphical records from the broader Vindhya region, especially pertaining to the Chandela kingdom and the Kalchuris. And in the course of my researches, I have found several new epigraphical records. My biggest finding so far has been this new record of Rāghava-Yātrā to celebrate Rama Navami from a site in Prayagraj known as Garhwa. Now the word Garhwa itself, quite literally, it means a fort. Garh, as we all know, is often a suffix in the names of several forts. However, this particular site is not actually a fort. The fortification was done fairly recently by the local Baghel king. Garhwa is actually a very ancient temple site. The oldest temples at the site date all the way back to the Gupta period. Now, in the screen, you can see there is a picture of Lord Ram, a terracotta sculpture. This sculpture actually belongs to the Gupta period. So, Guptas, as we all know, were themselves Vaishnavas, and my hypothesis is that Ram worship was actually popularized during Gupta times. So coming to the topic at hand, we all know that Yatra, it refers to religious congregations and pilgrimage. However, in the modern Hindi parlance, in northern India especially, this word has now lost its religious significance. These days, Yatra in northern India, especially in Hindi, refers to travel of any kind. However, back in the day, this was not the case. We have several textual and epigraphical references to this effect. Talking of textual references, we have a reference of a queen in Kashmir celebrating a Yatra festival in honor of a local form of Lord Shiva. Now, similarly, we have several such examples in epigraphy. There is a site in northern India in Rajasthan known as Bijolia. It has several Shiv temples and they have many different records from several centuries that mention Yatra in honor of Lord Shiva. Especially there is a Mandakini Kund in Bijolia, which dates back to the period of the Chauhan rulers of Rajasthan. So it has a very detailed account of Mahakal Yatra in honor of Lord Shiva. Similarly, from other places in the country, we also get several such references for Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and many other popular deities. And A very important example would be the Anjaneri plates, copper plates that were discovered in the town of Anjaneri. Well, Anjaneri is the name of a mountain in Nashik district. And according to some sources, this was the site where Anjani, the mother of Lord Hanuman, performed penance and gave birth to Lord Hanuman. So this site actually has a Vishnu temple. And back in the 8th century, a local ruler named Bhog Shakti, who belonged to the Harishchandra Empire, made provisions for a yatra for Lord Vishnu. Now, this record is very important as it will help us contextualize the inscription that I found in Prayagraj. So, there are some words associated with yatras in epigraphical records. Uh, First of all, yatra can also be termed as an utsav or a festival. So, this was not just a plain religious pilgrimage, but it also involved festivities and feasting. And moreover, another word that often occurs with yatras in epigraphical records is yatra dan. Now, dan refers to charities, and such charitable acts were often performed by kings and merchants, wealthy merchants, and also feudal lords. Now, in the context of this Anjaneri plate that we have from the early 8th century by King Bhog Shakti of Harishchandra dynasty in Nashik, uh, the provisions for this Yatra festival. This was not a one-time event. This was an annual festival, and the provisions were entrusted to the local merchants. So the local merchant guilds also contributed from their profits towards such yatras. And interestingly, there is another word that is mentioned in that inscription, that is satra. There was also a satra or a religious charitable almshouse that fed Brahmins especially and mendicants who lived there. So, in case of an annual Yatra festival, such an almshouse would also have come in handy to provide for feasts and festivities. And this point is actually very important to understand the context of the Rāghava-Yātrā inscription that I have found from Prayagraj. Moving on. So on the screen, you can see right now, this is the inscription that I found. It's a beautifully inscribed large red sandstone slab. And the language of the inscription is Sanskrit in Nagari characters of late 11th century. And the kingdom, the king during whose reign this inscription was issued was the mighty Chandela emperor Kirttivarmman. For context, this is the same dynasty that established the temples of Khajuraho, and perhaps it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that absolutely no dynasty comes close to the Chandelas, especially in North India when it comes to temple architecture in early medieval period. And also another significance of this discovery is that this is the first inscription of this dynasty to have been reported from Allahabad or Prayagraj. So the date is very interesting. This record, if you see, in the last line of this record mentions the date, that is 11th of the bright half, that is Shukla Paksh of the month of Chaitra of Samvat 1152. That corresponds to the Gregorian year 1096 and Friday 7th of March. Now this is, if you see, 11th of Chaitra, Shukla Paksh is just 2 days after Ram Navami. So the last line also mentions that upon the conclusion of this Yatra festival, of this Rāghava-Yātrā, a temple for Lord Ram was also erected. So this also happens to be the first direct epigraphical mention of the erection of a Ram temple. And what we have understood from the context is that the Yatra festival was likely started 2 days earlier, that is on the 9th of Chaitra, that is Ram Navami, which perhaps involved a lot of pilgrims and devotees who visited from different parts of the kingdom, and they all congregated here, and then the temple for Lord Ram was erected at this site. Now, moving on. Uh, Here's a little bit about the archaeology and history of the Garhwa fort itself. Now, on the left, if you see, here is a Google map image of the fort. As I've told you earlier, this is actually not a fort. It is more of a temple complex. The fortification is fairly recent and it was never a military base. Actually, the fortification was done for the sole purpose of protecting the monuments inside. So, currently, if you see, there is a green circle that I've marked in the left image. That is the screenshot of a Google map image of this fort. This is currently the only standing temple that we have inside the complex. Rest all of the temples that must have been there previously, they have all been demolished. Now, this current standing temple is also a Vishnu temple, although it's not dedicated to Ram, and it's of a later date. It's about 50 years later than the Ram temple inscription that we have discovered. So it was erected in the year 1144 CE. Now, if you see this bigger red circle, where there is a little bit of jungle, this is the site where I believe the original Ram temple of our inscription must have been. Because this is also the site where I have found several pillars and portions of walls and small sculptures that are made of the very same stone that is used for the inscription. That is buff red sandstone, which is very abundant in this region, which is in the heart of the Vindhyas. Now, if you see on the right, this site was completely ruined in the 19th century when this was first noticed by Sir Alexander Cunningham. The photo above is from 1870 that was taken by Begler, who was the assistant of Sir Alexander Cunningham. And the photo below is me sitting at the very same, at the steps of the very same temple from 2024. Now, Garhwa is very important because this is one of the few sites which has yielded a number of Gupta inscriptions. Generally, it is very rare to find more than 2 or 3 Gupta inscriptions from a single site. But from Garhwa, we have found about 6 different Gupta inscriptions, out of which 4 are somewhat in a good condition to be translated, and 2 of them are too fragmentary to be translated. However, none of the inscriptions are complete, but at least 4 of them provide us with a good glimpse of the religion and the culture of the Gupta period back then. So here are the inscriptions in this slide. So on the left side, on the left picture, if you see, there is this inscription on a white background. There's a plate. So these are actually 2 inscriptions separated by a line, if you can see in the middle. So these 2 separate inscriptions were inscribed on the same column. And on the right side, you see 4 more inscriptions. Now, all of these inscriptions were first reported by Sir Alexander Cunningham during his visits in the 1870s and later in the 1880s. Now, what do these inscriptions tell us? So, the 6, all of these inscriptions belong to the 5th century, to the reign of 3 different Gupta kings, namely Chandragupta II, Skandagupta, and Kumaragupta. Now, these inscriptions all record satra and provisions for food that were made for Brahmins and mendicants. And very importantly, if you see on the right side, there is an inscription that is vertical. This is very important because this inscription also records the construction of a temple for Lord Vishnu as well as the worship of Chitrakoot Swami. So Lord Vishnu in this inscription is mentioned as Ananta Swami, or the Lord of Anant. Anant is also one of the names of Sheshanag. So Ananta Swami is the word used for Lord Vishnu. And then this record also mentions Lord Vishnu as Chitrakoot Swami. Now, the geographical location of Garhwa is very interesting because it is currently in Prayagraj district, but it is actually halfway between Prayag and Chitrakoot. And Chitrakoot, the entire religious significance of this place is because of its association with Lord Ram. So this is a very interesting epithet that goes to show that Ram was already a very popular deity back in the Gupta period, popular enough that he was associated with sites in Ramayana and his temples were being built. So, uh, at least the antiquity of Ram worship at this site goes all the way back to the 5th century, at least, speaking archaeologically. Now, the new 11th century inscription that I have discovered further reveals many more interesting things about this place. Uh, as many of the panelists have told us before that uh, Yatra congregations were generally held at places that were of importance, that were related to Puranic events or epic events of Hinduism. So this place also, we have identified that this was perhaps the place where Lord Ram stayed for the last time before finally venturing into the forests of Chitrakoot. Now, as per the Valmiki Ramayana, most of the time of Lord Ram was spent in the forests of Chitrakoot, in the Vindhyas. So, the Ayodhya Kand of Ramayana tells us that after crossing Yamuna, Lord Ram stayed at a particular place for one night before finally venturing into the forest. So, to this day, nobody has ever identified the place, although about 3 or 4 different places in the vicinity of Garhwa are known as the resting spot for Ram. But no conclusive evidence exists. So the 11th century inscription interestingly offers a great clue. It says that the temple at Garhwa was erected because this was an earlier resting site of Dashrath, that is son of Dashrath, that is Lord Ram. So we have finally identified the place where Lord Ram rested before finally venturing into Chitrakoot. And this was very likely a popular yatra or tirth site or a pilgrimage site way back in the day during the times of the Chandelas. And although the inscription doesn't say whether the yatra processions were an annual event or a one-time event, but we very likely think that it was an annual event and uh, the festivities happened around Ram Navami every year. And we also have reasons to suppose that the tradition of Ram Yatra or Rāghava-Yātrā at Garhwa might have gone back all the way to the Gupta period. Why, you may ask? So, the simple reason is the words that we have found in Gupta inscriptions from this site paint a picture that there was also a system of bhandara or a langar that we see today in many Hindu and Sikh temples. So the Gupta inscriptions mention that the Satra or the charitable almshouse at Gadwa had provisions for food and lodging for mendicants and Brahmins who lived off of alms. Now, it is natural to suppose that during such a massive annual yatra, such institutions that had provisions for langar or bhandaras would have come in handy. Now, the only problem is that the Gupta inscriptions are very fragmentary and a lot of them have not been preserved very well. So, we'll never know for sure. But if we correlate both the time periods and the inscription, the 11th century inscription with the previous Gupta inscriptions, we can somewhat see a better picture that perhaps there was a Yatra festival way back in the day during the Gupta times itself. Now, as I was talking about Satra, this is the Anjaneri plates of Bhog Shakti from Nashik from the early 8th century. So, what we see in the Gupta inscriptions is also seen here. At this site in Anjaneri, in Nashik, provisions were made for feeding the mendicants and feeding Brahmins. And the provisions, the responsibility of making these provisions was entrusted to local merchants. And the currency that was used was Krishna Raj Rupak or silver coins of King Krishna Raj of the Kalchuri dynasty. So perhaps this king Bhog Shakti was a feudatory of the Kalchuris of Mahishmati that ruled Western India for a long time. So nearly all of these sites that are associated with yatras usually had a system of langar or bhandar that was that continued year round, and which also helped felicitating the feasts that happened on, particularly on Yatra festivals. Now that we have identified at least one site which potentially has such an ancient history of Ram Yatra or Rāghava-Yātrā, the question is, can we now identify other sites that also may have such a tradition? So the answer is, in my opinion, is at least two sites do paint such a picture. Uh, One of them, again, is in Maharashtra. It is the site of Ram Tek in Nagpur. So this site also has very ancient temples from the Gupta period, and the epigraphical evidence, although is not does not come from the site, it actually comes from Riddhipur plates of Prabhavati Gupta, who was a Gupta princess, and she was later married to the Vakataka king Rudra Sen, and in her plates, she actually acted as a regent for her son. She was the daughter of Gupta Emperor Chandragupta II, who was himself a very devout Bhagavad, and uh, likewise she also followed the footsteps of her father and became a devotee of Lord Ram. So in her plates, in her copper plates, she mentions that she was a devout worshipper of Lord Ram, and she worshipped Lord Ram's Charan Padukas that were placed at Ram Tek in Nagpur. Now, Ram Tek is one of those sites that is where it is believed that Lord Ram stayed with uh, Lakshman and Sita during his exile, and even to this day, people worship Lord Ram's Charan Padukas there. There is a Ram temple. In the picture, you can see this is the current temple that was likely built in the 12th or the 13th century. So, although we haven't found any Gupta inscriptions from that site, but we are fairly positive that it had a Ram temple dated to the Gupta period. So, Prabhavati Gupta was already worshipping Lord Ram Charan Paduka because it is believed that Lord Ram had stayed here. And then we also know that these days Kalidas is dated to the Gupta period. He was believed to be a court poet of a Gupta ruler in the 5th century or the 4th century. The exact date is still a matter of debate a little bit. But this site of Ramtek is also associated with Kalidas. It is said that he wrote Meghdut at this site, and he also mentions the association of this site with Lord Ram. And then later on, in the 12th and the 13th century, this area came under the rule of the Yadav kings of Devagiri of Maharashtra. So a very prominent king of this dynasty was Ramchandra. And during the reign of this dynasty, several temples at this site were renovated. And from 12th and 13th century onwards, we see a very prominent evidence of Ram worship from here, especially in epigraphy. So moving on, there is one more site that may have had such a tradition of Ram Yatra. So that is the temple of Rajin in Garhwa, Chhattisgarh, Garhwa district. So apparently they are now trying to make Rajim a part of Raipur district, but currently it is in Garhwa, Chhattisgarh. So this site in Rajin actually had a very ancient Vishnu temple from the time of Nala dynasty in 7th century. And the name Rajim itself derives from Rajiv Lochan. Now, Rajiv Lochan or lotus eye is one of the epithets of Lord Vishnu. So, Rajim is basically a corruption or upabranch of Rajiv. So, this site already had a Vishnu temple in the 6th or 7th century. We also have an inscription, although it doesn't explicitly say anything about Lord Ram. But we have reasons to believe that the Vishnu temple here was established because of the association of this site with Lord Ram. So Rajim is actually located very close to Dandak forests, where Lord Ram was searching for Devi Sita. So it is highly probable that due to the association of Lord Ram with this site, a temple of Vishnu was established here. However, the 7th century inscription doesn't explicitly say so, unlike the Garhwa inscriptions from Gupta times or the inscriptions from Nagtek. But later on, in the 12th century, during the reign of Prithvi Dev Kalchuri uh, of 1145 CE, we have a very interesting inscription that directly attests Ram worship at this site. So during his reign, a pilgrim from Ayodhya came all the way to this site and established a Ram temple at the very site where a 7th century Vishnu temple already existed. And he explicitly mentions that he is establishing a temple for the worship of Raghava or Lord Ram. And he also quotes a few lines from the Ramayana. And the date of the establishment of this temple is also very interesting. It is very notable, and it does point to the existence of a Yatra festival at this site. Although the word Yatra is not used here. The date is Rath Ashtami of Magh. Now, currently, we are not sure what Rath Ashtami exactly means. But even today, on the 7th of the Shukla Paksha of Magh, we celebrate Rath Saptami in honor of Lord Surya. So it is somewhat like a Rath Yatra because Lord Surya is associated with the chariots, and the day 7 is also somewhat related to the 7 horses that drive the chariot of Lord Surya. But the date here mentioned is Rath Ashtami. Now, today, Rath Ashtami is celebrated as Bhim Ashtami. So perhaps over the years, the association of this festival may have changed from Lord Ram to Bhishma of Mahabharata for whatever reason. But one thing we must also note is that Rath Saptami, which is celebrated in the honor of Lord Surya, Surya or sun god himself is a manifestation of Narayan or Vishnu, as per many texts. And also, Lord Ram being a Suryavanshi may have something to do with this. So, we think that this specific the date that was chosen to consecrate the temple of Lord Ram at Rajim may have something to do with the Yatra festival that took place way back in the 12th century in this region. And also, there are a few temples here dedicated to Lord Shiva that are said to have been established by Lord Ram and Devi Sita because it is believed they worship Lord Shiva here. And uh, moving on, so the implications. So I would, as to conclude my talk, I would like to discuss the implications of the discovery of the new inscription on the worship and antiquity of Lord Ram. So, first of all, there are a few beliefs that have long been held in academia regarding worship of Lord Ram. So, one of the prominent beliefs, especially by scholars like Sheldon Pollock, is that Lord Ram, the worship of Lord Ram is not very ancient. It was popularized only after the 13th or the 14th century, especially after contacts with Muslim rulers. The argument made is that Lord Ram served as an example of a just ruler who fought against the evil. So Hindu rulers of those times, they used Lord Ram as an inspiration to fight against invaders or foreign rulers. So Sheldon Pollock dates the beginnings or the popularity of Ram worship from 13th or 14th century onwards. However, the current evidence that I have gathered shows that Ram worship was already fairly popular centuries before this. And to further strengthen his point, Sheldon Pollock also mentions that many of the festivities that are today associated with the Lord Ram have not been epigraphically attested. For example, he uses the example of the earliest mention of Rama Navami. Now, he says that the oldest mention of Ram Navami in any source is from Agastya Samhita, a text that is dated to 14th or 13th century, and it is completely absent in epigraphical records. But the new inscription that I have discovered is actually dated just 2 days after Ram Navami. And interestingly, according to many texts, uh, it was not the Vijay Dashmi, or it was not actually uh, the Amavasya of Deepavali that was the real date of coronation of Lord Ram. It was actually uh, few days after his own birthday. That is either the 10th or the 11th of Shukla Paksha of Chaitra. That was the real date of coronation of Lord. So this new inscription shows that Lord Ram was already a very popular deity by the 11th century, popular enough that a Yatra festival that uh, commenced on his birthday and concluded 2 days later, perhaps on the real date of his coronation. And then, upon that, a temple for him was erected, many centuries before the date that is proposed by many of the scholars. And as we have seen, we also have some hints of the existence of Yatra festival or pilgrimage for Lord Ram from other sites. I took two examples here. One is of Ramtek in Nagpur, uh, which, uh, which is mentioned in the Riddhapur copper plates of Prabhavati in the late fourth and uh, in the late fourth century. So Ram was already gaining popularity in the Gupta period itself. Then moreover, moving on to the site of Rajim in Chhattisgarh. Again, we have a Rath festival. We have an attestation, epigraphical attestation of Rath festival, uh, which was the date that was chosen to erect a Ram temple at the site. So this new discovery, I think, has opened a lot of new avenues for us, and a lot of new information uh, is now coming out for to prove the antiquity and popularity of Ram worship uh, at a much earlier date than previously supposed. And I hope to continue this research further to find more answers. So with this, I conclude my talk. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Rudra Srivastava ji. It is a wonderful presentation of you of your archaeological and epigraphical research on the Ram festival Yatra,
Thank you.
uh,
Thank you. So thanks a lot.
earliest record of Ram festival Yatra. In fact, Ram festival is very, very popular today. Today, we have many places where Ram Navami Jatra is very popular, particularly in the Godavari region of Andhra Pradesh. It is very much popular. It is centered around another Ram shrine called Bhadrachalam in the Khammam district of
Yes.
Telangana. So centered around that Bhadrachalam shrine, there is a very big culture of Ram Navami festivals being celebrated there from several centuries, at least from the 17th, 18th centuries, we have the record of such festivals there. But such an ancient record as you brought out shuts the mouths of many people, like you have already quoted,
Yes.
Sheldon Pollock. Thank you very much. Let us
Thank
check
you.
if there are any questions. In the question and answer box, why do we date Vedas and Samhitas based on written textual records when they are totally Shruti-based traditions? So it is not connected to the present talk. That's a totally different topic and not related to the theme of the symposium. So if there are any theme related questions or questions related to the sensational discovery by Rudra Vikrama ji, then we can. There is one by one of the panelists, 9th century early Chola temples. Many of them have miniature Ramayana panels in the Adhisthana.
Yes, definitely, sir. So actually, I just saw another question, very interesting question. Arjun Singh ji has asked, archer coins of Guptas are direct connect to Ram. Do you think so? Well, actually, I would like to answer this. This is actually a very good question. And this is what I've also been thinking about. So, archer coins of Guptas gained popularity during the reign of Chandragupta II, who is arguably one of the greatest rulers of this dynasty. So, during his reign, the king, he himself is represented as an archer, holding a bow and an arrow uh, in his hands. Now, I have tried finding answers to this question that what was the motivation of King Chandragupta II to use such an imagery in his coins. So far, I have not been able to find the right answer to this, but I have hypothesis. Now we all know that Guptas were devout worshippers of Vishnu, and the rulers. Most of the rulers have described themselves as Param Bhagavat, and this is also the time when we see a proliferation of uh, themes based on Ramayana and Lord Ram's life in many of the Gupta sites. So I do have reasons to believe that perhaps the coin of Chandragupta II, in which he is holding a bow and arrow, is perhaps inspired by none other than Lord Ram. And further evidence for this comes from the inscriptions of his daughter, Prabhavati Gupta, who was married to Vakataka king and also acted as a regent to her own son. So Prabhavati Gupta, as I have mentioned in my talk, she was actually a very devout worshipper of Lord Ram, not just of Vishnu, but particularly of Lord Ram. And at Ramtek, she used to go for pilgrimage to worship Lord Ram's Sharan Paduka. So it is very compelling to believe that uh, perhaps Chandragupta II was also a worshipper of Lord Ram himself. And moreover, there is another inscription from Ghazipur in Uttar Pradesh that mentions Vishnu as Shang there. Now, Shang means bow and arrow. Vishnu holding a bow and arrow, so that is very likely a reference to Lord Ram. So I do think uh, this to be a plausible hypothesis. Now, going a little back in time, during the times of the Kushanas, who were the predecessors of Guptas, at least one coin of the Kushanas have been discovered that perhaps depicts Lord Ram. That is from Gandhar, uh, from the time of Hovishka Kushan. The coin, it is a copper coin that is dated to mid to late second century CE. Now, on the one side of this coin, we have, I think, the king Hovish himself sitting on an elephant. On the other side, we have a deity holding a bow and arrow. So that is very likely also a depiction of Lord Ram on coins. And maybe the Guptas later popularized it by imagining themselves as Lord Ram, who is the ideal and just king. So, this theme of kings adopting Lord Ram is also very common in later times. Now, I just told you about the inscription that I've discovered. So, the inscription belongs to the time of the 11th century inscription that I'm talking about belongs to the time of Kirttivarmman Chandela. Now, in another inscription, Kirttivarmman Chandel, although he was a chef, his prime minister compares Kirttivarman to Lord Ram. He says that the soul of Lord Ram had entered the body of Kirttivarman and he became invincible in battle. So I think this is a very popular theme for kings to adopt heroes of Mahabharat and Ramayana, especially Lord Ram, because he served as a model for a just and righteous king. So it is highly likely that the archer type coin of Chandragupta II was inspired by Lord.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've actually answered the question that was asked. So
Okay.
okay.
Now.
Thank you.